Hello class, this is Naiji Coach, and in this episode we'll be going over human design. What is human design? Basically it's how the psyche of humans has evolved to its state now to do what it does. There's a lot to that, but in this episode we'll be focusing on the conscious part, but also relates to the unconscious mechanisms of the human psyche as well. We'll get into that in Peak Pathways. In each episode, you'll be given a crucial part of natural law, a principle or a concept to work with. In this case, human design. Each are important and important for different reasons. Human design is important because it's the bridge between the pod powers, sort of in the abstract or in a vacuum, and put together for how they were designed. What purposes did they get to this point? Why did they evolve to the state they are in now? And how they relate to all the variety of mojos that we have. So when we get into the next episode talking about the different mojos, you'll need to know human design to know why they are the way they are. And then also when we get into mojo reading will be using the human design as what's going on in here that you're seeing manifested in the physiological cues. So you'll need that connection. Without that connection, you won't be able to do the mojo reading properly. And then finally, there's also the Peak Pathways. Well, not finally, but kind of like the end of that trio is getting into the unconscious aspects of the human psyche's mechanics. And for that, you'll have to know the conscious mechanics very well because that's what's touching the other side. So learn this well, and you'll be ready to go for the next episodes. Let's begin. This is going to be the Universal Design overview module. So the nice beautiful visual here that Naiji has worked up for y'all. This is a universal version. There's also a specific version, like as a Naiji. There's one that's actually specific to me where these powers are rated and organized on my design. But I'm going to use this one just for today because it is universal and I think it'll be helpful for what we're doing. Human design is, in short, the mechanics of how your psyche has evolved as a human, as part of the human collective, to be the latest and greatest evolved or engineered intelligence on this planet. So it's got all the bells and whistles, and there actually is a math to that. And this math can be seen later on in mojo reading. The face and the various things you do with your body actually show that there's a base way humans are wired, and then there are some variables that allow for infinite variation. But within that infinite variation, there are certain energies, levers, counter levers, relationships of things that need to hold each other up, need to hold each other back, and this has evolved into a perfect synergistic storyline or software that we all humans have. And if we understand this, you can see this underlying everything that everyone else is doing. So regardless of person being black, white, Asian, or whatever, once you know what to look for and understand, this is humans. So everything else that you know is on top of this. This is what's underneath the hood. So as an analogy, I'm going to give it to you here is I'm going to place this on my head like so. Okay, so I'm going to pull it down now here so you can see this area represents back here in my head. This area represents the front, this represents back here, and this represents here. So like this, and now we show it to you like this. Make sense? Part of this makeup is that you have 8 powers that constitute the processes that the psyche involved in. These processes come in different rankings, and they take up a different amount of headspace for different individuals, but all humans have all 8. Now, of these 8, some are conscious, 4 of them, and some are unconscious, another 4 of them, and that varies from person to person as well. Directive means processes, powers of the psyche that have structure, have a beginning, a middle, and end, a need for closure, they're goal-oriented. These powers are over here on the left side of the head. So, directive powers. As a Naiji, I am a directive mojo. Adaptive means free-form, unstructured, open-ended, stream of consciousness, and they're located on the right side of the psyche. I have powers on the right side of my psyche, but they're not as high up in my hierarchy ranking as my left side. Subjective are the 4 powers that are located back here. The powers that are located in the back of the brain are oriented towards experiences and understandings and discernments that are happening inside your inner world of your psyche. The powers located up here in the front 2 quadrants, they are objective, and they're oriented towards things that are happening out in the environment or even within your own mind. They are oriented towards the objective to you being the subject. If you're the subject, and they're oriented to things that are outside of you. I'm going to use an example as we go through. You can use any mojo you want, but it helps give context to use a mojo. I'm going to use the Naiji because I am one. So I'll pause after those couplets on objective and subjective. As a Naiji, this comes on first, the back area, so that makes me, as a Naiji, a subjective mojo. Perception are the powers that take in information. Here is the perception corridor, so they're located in the front right and the back left. And so things like memories, 5 senses, abstraction, speculation, they're all different kinds of perception, but they all are perception, and they occupy this corridor. Within perception, you have perception that is based on understanding things or taking them in details and then working up to patterns, or starting with patterns and then filling in the details. So within the perception channel, we actually have here, this is called the interpretive channel. I'm using yin hand signs, and those are the powers that are interested in patterns. And then literal is the channel within the perception corridor that's interested in the literal perceptions or the detail-based perceptions. Discernment is making decisions based on some kind of criteria. These criteria can be logic-based or values-based. They can be personal or objective criteria, but they are criteria for making a decision. And those powers are in the discernment corridor, back right and front left. Logic-based powers are located in the discernment corridor, and they are the logic-based channel, and they are concerned with discernments that have sort of a mathematical quality to them, to where emotionality and personal interest are removed from the equation. Those are considered criteria that are not used. What is used are things that are sequential, that are logical, that are mathematical. The values-based powers are also in the discernment corridor. They are here in the values-based channel. And these powers are concerned with making decisions based on humanistic interests. So both the humanistic interest of other humans and the humanistic interest of yourself as a human. Those can also be very important criteria for making decisions. As a Naiji, that within perception corridor and discernment corridor, Naiji, the Nai comes on first, so perception. As a Naiji, I am perceiver as opposed to a discerner, lead. And then within the perception corridor, I favor a interpretive power channel, so I'm interpretive. And then also in the discernment corridor, I prefer a values-based discernment. Ji is a values-based discernment, so I am values-based in preference of logic-based. The 4 considerations are basically the things that your psyche must be able to do in order to function, to be able to get by. It's what we've evolved to be able to handle. If we couldn't handle this, we wouldn't have made it. And those are objectivity, subjectivity, perception, discernment. You need to be able to take in information, make decisions. You need to be able to orient your information in taking decisions both in personal or subjective context and also in an objective or universal context. Now, with my powers, my top 2 powers of 8, Naiji, I actually can address all 4 of those, and all mojo designs can do that. With their top 2 powers, they can address those 4 considerations. That doesn't mean that's the limit of your mind and that the other powers are turned on, but it shows a spectrum of development. That is the minimum requirement to be functional. There are more requirements that make you more masterful, but a human can get by just using their top 2 powers mainly in order to satisfy those 4 considerations. These have to do with the 4 quadrants. Here you have the worldview map priority, which is the psyche needs some way of orienting what everything is. What is the map that we're all looking at? What is the terrain? And then you have dynamics mover, an ability to influence the environment. So think of it as like an agenda and articulation or steering. Very much like a ship. It's kind of like this is the map and this is like the steering wheel. And then back here you have compass bearings. It's almost like a suspension system. It handles shock. It keeps you from being lost. It's almost like if you got dunked underwater. It's the bubbles you follow to be able to find where upright is again. So that's very important. And up here is stimulus register, which takes in stimulus from the environment. So kind of like a Star Trek ship, it's like taking readings in the environment to find out what's going on out there. That's not affecting the environment, it's reading. So reading the environment with sensors, steering or affecting the environment. What is the entirety of the map and where am I currently located or situated? Okay, so as a NIG, I actually address the worldview map with the Ni, and I address the dynamics mover with the G. I also have powers that address the other two priorities, but I have to work harder at them. So that's what I want to be as a mature human, is to have all four priorities addressed well, but I'll have to come from my Ni-G strong point and develop my other powers, which are Xi and V, my other conscious powers. Back here, as I said, is the worldview map, and it's concerned with sort of orienting to you what everything you're aware of is. It's the context within your own psyche of what everything is. Out here, the stimulus register kind of gives you context of what everything is in a objective sense, like what's in the room or the environment. But this is sort of like a concept in your mind of what everything is. There are two main ways that's addressed, Ni and Vi. Ni is like speculation of what things are, and Vi is like a historical record of what everything is. So speculation or a recording of what it is, and so that's the map. I described them briefly already, and they're located back here. There are two kinds. There's the Xi and Xi. Xi is a values-based compass bearing, and Xi is a logic-based compass bearing, and they allow you to keep equilibrium after being impacted by stress or new information or new situations. And those two powers get impacted by different things, and they establish equilibrium differently. Between the two of them, they establish that. Xi is more concerned with harmony and Xi with perfection, but both those are needed for equilibrium. They're located up here. The obvious one is the five senses of V, but there's also the sixth sense of Ni, which are like vibratory patterns that are happening and unfolding in real time or around real time. So that is needed to take in something from the environment and know what's going on. For myself, I actually have Xi back here, and I have V up front, five senses in Ni-G. All Ni-G do. Those are located up in the front left, and they are G, which I have as an Ni-G, but also Z, and they are your way of making the environment move in a certain direction for a better result. With G, that's often moving the people around me or the emotions within a given person in order to make the story that's unfolding go in what I hope is a more beneficial direction.